Hello, my awesome friends. I hope you're all doing well. Are you doing well? I hope you're doing well. I really do. Last Thursday? Was it Thursday? I think it was Thursday. Thursday? Yeah, it might have been Thursday last week. So last Thursday, I went to go live stream. And what I use, I get on my laptop and I set up OBS. And then I was getting everything else, set up, get all my monitors set up and everything. And I go to do it. All of a sudden, my app that lets me use my iPhone as my webcam goes out. It just doesn't work. I don't know why. So okay, I've got a backup for that. I can switch it over to something called Video Ninja. So it's what I used for Tam's camera when I have her on. So I went to use that along with showing Tam's camera. Did not work. In fact, what started happening was that my internet started to disconnect on my laptop, not anywhere else, just it would drop the connection, network connection for whatever reason. And this was frustrating. I couldn't figure out why it was going on. I started doing what you always do when you're trying to figure out something, you try to recreate it. I couldn't recreate it, right? It kept happening. So finally, I just turned off OBS and it stops. Don't have any problems. So I do something and I run OBS and I look at the performance. And according to, the Windows performance, it is running about 35 to 40% of my processor and more than 50% of my memory. I'm going, what the heck is going on? So I'm just frustrated. I've been frustrated with my laptop for a year now. I know it's coming, I felt it was coming close to, having to buy a new laptop. I have somewhat of a limited experience with Linux. And my experience in the past has been playing around with two distributions called Ubuntu and Mint. And the last time I'd used Linux was something like 12 years ago. And I had used it for an old laptop that I just wanted to use as a kind of like a backyard music media center, which is what I did. I used it in my in my garage and to play music, things like that. Worked great. It was fantastic. So I knew because of that if I wanted to get some more time out of my laptop, the best thing to do would be to switch to Linux. So it'd been a while since I'd used either distributions, and I went out there and looked, and wow, did I find out that there's a lot more distributions out there. So I stuck with what I knew, Ubuntu or Linux Mint, and I decided to go with Linux Mint. I had to make the decision, did I want to wipe out my entire hard drive and see what I could do with Linux Mint? So what I did first was, in Linux, and especially Linux Mint, I don't know, especially Linux Mint, you could do this with Linux Mint, okay? All you need is like a 6 gig thumb drive, 4 gigs, something like that. And you can put the OS on the thumb drive. You can mount it through the thumb drive. You can plug it into any keyboard, and as long as you can get it to boot from the USB port, you can boot into Linux Mint. Now, you can't make any changes, you can't download anything for it. It's kind of like a test drive model if you wanted to see how it would work with your stuff. So that's what I did. I first did that, and I tested my microphone. I tested my speakers. I tested my wireless headset. It all worked great. I thought, fantastic. That kind of, after talking to Tam a little bit, kind of clearing my head and understanding what it is I wanted to do, I decided, okay, that's what I'm gonna do. So I wiped out Windows from my system and installed the newest version of Linux Mint. And let me just tell you, my experience over the last, I think it's been 3 days since I installed it now. My experience the last 3 days has been pretty good. I have tested out OBS on it. There's been a few apps that I couldn't use because there was no Linux version of them. And I contacted them and asked them, hey, are you going to have a Linux version soon? And a couple of them said, no desire for that. A couple of them said, yes, yeah, actually we're working on it right now. So I was like, bonus. And I was also able to replace those apps with versions or with other third-party, software manufacturers that made software for Linux. And I found, what I had to replace was pretty good. It worked. Also found out that quite a few of the apps that I had used, DaVinci Resolve, OBS itself, had Linux versions, and they work fantastic. My experience with this has been overall good so far, and I'm happy. Today, I'm going to try for the first time. I've done some test runs, but today I'm going to try to broadcast live on YouTube, and hopefully that'll go well. We'll see if there's any hiccups. I expect that there will be some hiccups that I'll have to iron out, get worked out, but I don't know what they are quite yet until I do it, right? Because that's one of the things is you have to kind of do things to know if you're doing them wrong, okay? My experience has been good. There's been times where I didn't know what to do. I didn't understand what was going on. And I was able to look up the information on the internet and get it within minutes. Now, all my issues have been fixed so far. Relatively easy. I haven't had that much of an issue with it so far. I think it's one of those things that depends on what your needs are. My needs are very low. I think this isn't something you'd want to do if you're a high-end gamer. Like, Linux isn't ready for gamers right now. But if you're not playing games on your laptop and you want more control, and that's another thing, Linux gives you a lot of control over what you're doing, and it streamlines a lot of things, and it's less buggy, less bloat than Windows. I'm just happier with this now. I'm just saying that if you're a gamer, it's not going to work, but if you're not a gamer and you're doing other things like even video editing, things like that, you can do that on Linux, not crash as much, and if you have an older system, it'll last longer. So I highly recommend giving this a try. Someone asked me in my Discord the other day, if I got a new computer, would I put Linux on? And the answer I gave at the time was, and this answer may change, later on over time. The answer I gave was, I would probably want a hard drive that's big enough to do a dual boot, which means that I could boot either Windows or Linux if I wanted to, right? Because the advantages of Windows is simple. It's that everyone makes apps for Windows. Not a lot of people that make apps just for Mac or just for Linux. Everybody's making apps for Windows and Apple. Sometimes they make versions for Linux. And I understand that. The Linux desktop, from what I understand, for people's computers, desktop computers, right? People that use just desktop computers, it's something like less than 3% of the desktops are Linux users. That may be more, because one of the things about Linux is that Linux does not broadcast what it is, right? So, like, in other words, the metadata that your computer picks up or the internet picks up doesn't broadcast that's Linux. It's very well protected. So I get that software developers don't really put in the effort to make their software for Linux use, because where's the money in that? Thing is, most of the software that comes from Linux, if it's not made by a third party, it's usually open source and usually fixed and patched and what have you by the Linux community, those who know how to code and do those things. In fact, a lot of software is just made by the Linux community for Linux. It works great. Some of it just works fantastic. So I don't recommend it. I definitely, don't recommend for people who are playing games or, what have you. But what would I do? I said I would have a dual boot. That's what I said. I'm getting back to this. Dual boot, because there are apps that don't exist in Linux, that is only Windows, stuff like that. So I might do that. I don't know, though. The more I'm using Linux, the more I feel like, for most of my needs, it fills. And I think if there's some things that I would need a Windows app for, I would hope that there was a Linux version, or I don't know if it'd be worth having the OS. I don't know if it'd be worth having Windows on my system anymore. I don't know that. We'll see. Well, my perspective may change over the next week or a couple of days as I get to know it more. I don't know. But that's where I'm at right now. I'm hoping for luck. I'm hoping things are going to go good today, and that I'll have a good live stream, and everything will work, and we'll see. But yes, that's what's going on with me right now. So, well, how about you? Would you be willing to switch your OS to something other than what you're using? Do you use Linux? What's your experience been with it? If you have, let me know down in the comments below. And I'll get back to you guys and let you know how things are going. What was the point of this video? I just wanted to share with you. I just want to share with you my experience this week, what was going on, what was I doing. So that's it. Thank you for watching this long video of me rambling. Okay, bye.